Hit it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the web's most popular clinical trials podcast now. We are now on iTunes. You'll be seeing all of our interviews on iTunes and all of our lengthier videos like this one on iTunes. We'll still keep the shorter ones on YouTube. We don't want to just dilute iTunes with crazy content. So this one, we're going to do these kind of videos every now and then where Don and I either discuss recent happenings in clinical trials, recent things in the news related to clinical trials, or just issues that we find important. And maybe we try to catch some trends in our industry as they're happening. So for you research clinics out there, you people working at the research clinics, especially the ones in charge of forecasting, this episode will be, hopefully you'll find value in it. I think it's important. And we're going to talk about what we see in clinical trials and kind of how they're headed in 2012 and beyond. And today we're going to talk about different ways that you can prepare for that and also how you can bill pharma for these things which you may not have had to have dealt with in the past. But because of the way trials are changing, these are new issues. And let me just remind our newer viewers that myself and Don, we both work in the industry. We both own South Coast Clinical Trials, so we manage the business. We know what we're talking about. We're not just journalists paid to talk about research. We actually are doing this in our day jobs, and then we happen to be bloggers as well. So we're not bloggers who just blog about clinical trials because it's fun. We're actually doing this stuff. Right, Don? Or do you do it because it's fun?
Well, actually, I enjoy research.
Okay.
There's aspects of it that's daunting in its task that I'm not crazy about. But I say they're trying to collect your paycheck from the farm. That's daunting.
Right. Well, look,
our city business, you know, when you're dealing with those kind of things, become difficult. But that's the nature of the beast, and why some of us go into business and some of us don't.
Right. I watch a lot of business blogs, a lot of business podcasts, and there's some, where they're clearly bloggers who just blog about it, and you can tell they haven't done it. It's different listening to someone talk about how to be a millionaire when they're poor, rather than listening to someone talk about how to be a millionaire when they've already done it. So that's kind of what I'm trying to say here is we're doing this clinical trial stuff every day. We're not just talking about it. So for those of you who just recently joined our podcast, just to clear that up.
And you're looking at, between Dan and I both, about 20 years of experience when you think about it. And first of all, I just want to apologize. I know I look like just came off the street, my bandana stuff.
Oh, man, Don.
Sarah, if you're watching it, I got my Ohio State shirt on.
Oh, Sarah's going to like that.
And but I just come back from the gym, got me a great workout in. And Dan is absolutely correct. We are living this every day. We are a site. We're small sites. And we deal with a lot of these issues on a day-to-day basis, and if we're not dealing with them, we're listening to the people that we work with and what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and they share that information. If they don't realize they're sharing it, we're picking it up.
Okay, so what I want to... Okay, after that long intro, sorry guys, the purpose of this video is to kind of talk about the trends that are happening in the clinical trial space from a business perspective so your research clinics can understand. And the reason we're bringing this one up is because Don and I were just talking about this yesterday, privately. And I said, hey, this would be a great video and one that I can put on iTunes. So Don, we're noticing clinical trials are changing.
Well, absolutely.
Pharma's getting more involved. Do you want to kind of explain just a little bit of what's going on?
Well, right now they have these other companies that have stepped in that are doing some of the ratings via telephone and also via Skype. There's another one we're going to be facing. And I'm listening to clinicians, even our own clinicians, talk with great concern over this, that it's gonna create some problems. And I listened to one of our sub-investigators who was at an investigational meeting, and a lot of people were concerned that the patients won't do well. That is taking the experience out of their hands, and it's affecting them. But here's what I say. I think you're always going to need that clinician, and you always have to, I think, look at things from the perspective of the other guy. And I mean the other guy, and that's pharma.
Right.
Pharma is a business, and anytime you run a business, and any of you out there running your business, you're always looking at a way to decrease your cost. But what we have to do as a business is look at this and says, okay, all right, they're changing this aspect of it. Now they're going to doing these remote ratings and stuff, and we won't be doing the ratings, or if we do the ratings, they have someone else that's doing it again. Well, you have to think about, this is what I thought about yesterday, and Dan and I had a chance to talk about it this morning, is that how is that going to impact us as far as time? Is it going to save us time? It might be benefiting pharma, but does it really benefit us in time? If this is costing us more time, can we bill for that extra time?
Right. Now, Don, not to interrupt, but let's back it up just a little.
Okay.
Let's explain.
I know I got on that jet plane really fast.
Right. I mean, here's some background info for the research clinics out there. We do psychiatry trials. So when we say rating scales, we rate someone's depression, someone's severity of their schizophrenia, someone's severity of their Alzheimer's, things like that. These are like trained investigators that have to do this stuff, PhDs, at least master's level people, right, that we used to have to employ. And now pharma's making the requirements very difficult for these raters. And not only that, but they're actually outsourcing some of the raters to centralized raters, where you have one guy like back east who's doing like either a Skype call like we are with the study participant, or on the phone. So they're kind of eliminating our rater, but not really eliminating them. They're just adding another level there, so that they're making sure that the ratings that we give them are consistent with the ratings that their deemed centralized rater is also given. So it's actually pissing off a lot of PIs and sub-investigators, because it's extra work, pissing off the patients. So back to what you were going to say, Don.
Well, you hit on a good point, too. And there's another point I want to add to that, is that they're also changing where a lot of ratings were being done by master's level, or even some stuff was at one time like the PANS. I remember coordinators used to do PANS because I participated in that, and that was back in the early 2000s. Now they're looking for some of these ratings like the Mini and the SCID. You have to either be a DO or an MD. And it's not that, for instance, we have nurse practitioners and PAs working for us, and they've been in this business for many years. Our PA has been doing research for about 15 years, and very much capable of doing this stuff. But there are scales now that he cannot do. And the same thing, too, you have these companies, as Dan said, that they're outsourcing to handle these rating scales. So you have to ask yourself, is how much money is that costing me? If you're contracting with your PI, and your PI is being a paid fee for service, now your PI may have to stick around longer, which that's going to cost you. So now, my question is, think about it, can we bill for that extra hours that PI is there? Because now you're taking up that PI's time even more. Your patients are going to be there a little bit longer. Because before, if you had your doctor or your sub-investigator, your PI or sub-investigator doing that rating, once they're done, they're done. And that information may get captured into the data bank, and that's it. And everyone's done signed their progress notes, done all their paperwork, and you move on. But now you not only have that, but you have this this other party that's doing the same thing that you did. So now that's extra time. Can that PI leave?
Right.
The PI is going to have to stay there. Am I right?
Yes.
So if I'm paying that PI fee for service, where the PI might be there for 4 hours, they may now be there for 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, based on how long it takes to get these ratings done over the phone or via Skype, and how many people you have to schedule to do that.
Yeah, so not only does the PI now have to do a lot of these skills that sub-investigators used to be able to do, but after they do their skill, they have to wait for the central rater to also talk to the study participant and rate them as well. And then after that, they've got to talk to that rater. The PI has to talk to that rater to confirm that they kind of rated it basically the same way. So basically the PI's time has doubled, which for the research clinic means they've got to pay them more money. And that's if everything goes well. We've had numerous cases already where we were waiting on the central rater to schedule the rating. And they actually ended up not having room that day, and so we had to bring in the study participant another day, and then that day something else happened. These are technical difficulties. Maybe their rating systems were down or whatever, but the point is these are things we used to not have to worry about as research clinics, and now that we do, and it's costing money, it's costing time. The study participants, this is for a bipolar study, the study participant's not going to be happy having to come in an extra 3 days for something that used to be able to get done in one visit. Now they have to come in for 3 visits because the central rater is not exactly efficient at scheduling everyone in.
And if I could interject, Dan, I think what the site should do is look at, because that was not the site's, in this case it was us, it was not our issue, and we were not at fault, we should be able to bill for an unscheduled visit, because we could have gotten everything completed. Now the subject that came in for the study, they're asking, well, I've been here all this time, I've been waiting. To me, this is a full visit. I think you guys should pay me for a full visit. And how do you argue that point? I mean, I think I'm on the side of the subject. It was a full visit, and we're waiting to resolve things, and we didn't get it resolved. So now we have to bring them back for another visit, and that's going to be, again, that's going to take time. So we're going to have to pay that subject again. Plus, we got to bring the staff in again to do the same thing, and that's going to eat up a slot where we could have had a new client in to that slot. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's costing time and money. So.
And it's not just happening with the psych studies. I know there's other therapeutic areas where they're trying to centralize these kind of functions that used to be done by the site, and so now they're being centralized somewhere else. So it's definitely something that caught us by surprise, but it's a trend that's here to stay. The drug companies want more control over their trials, and in their eyes, they're getting more efficient, but there are growing pains that we're dealing with right now because these are relatively new procedures that they're putting in. So it may work out for them in the long run, like 10 years from now. But right now, we're seeing a lot of hiccups and glitches because they're inefficient. They're not used to doing this. They don't know how to do it efficiently. And like Don said, we were talking yesterday, we're going to bill for those visits. Even though it's not in the contract, we're going to bill for them anyways. And we're going to talk to the sponsor about it and tell them, hey, first of all, it's taking up way too much time on our part. And second of all, we run the risk of losing some of these subjects. Because they keep having to be inconvenienced with coming back in when they really shouldn't have to come back in until their next visit. But because the central rater can't get their act together or can't schedule them in, and they don't let us know until the day of, then we have no choice but to bring the subject back in and technically we're not supposed to pay that subject. So this is something that is going to have to resolve itself, and I guess pharma is going to have to really take a closer look at this, because there's usually academics that design these trials, so it may look good on paper, but then in the real world, it's a whole different story, and it's causing headaches for myself and Don, and I'm sure a lot of other research clinics out there. So we will bill for it. Now, what's the bigger picture, Don? Are the pharma companies trying to slowly get rid of functions that sites used to do?
Well, I think they will. I mean, again, from a business perspective, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to find ways to make things efficient for you. You're not concerned about, the outer scope of things. You want it to be easy for them and an easy transition, but if it's a way that can scale back on your cost, then that increases your profit margin. And then you can still get the job done just as efficient. People may be a little bit reticent to change, but it's going to happen. I can even envision them doing the consent form via Skype, but still having the PI on site in order to answer questions or to be there to sign off. Maybe there might be something where you've got this this buy contract or buy agreement or a consent form where both the central rater might do it, and the PI or somebody might, I'm using the term central rater, but somebody who's at a central location can handle these consent forms and do it Skype to make sure that that's going on. They might start doing the PANs. I can see if they're doing the ratings that we're looking at, why not do all the ratings via Skype or over the phone? Why not just take that whole thing out of the site's hands and just do it over the phone? Have the site bring the client in and place them on the phone or place them in front of that computer.
Yeah, so you can see how our interview with Craig Lipset from Pfizer, and for those of you who haven't seen it, go check it out. They call it clinical trials in a box. So it's kind of where they've removed the site. They've removed many of the functions that the research clinics used to actually do, and they've kind of centralized them into one hub in each city. So it's kind of like very similar to that, what's going on here, although it's going to take a long time for them to completely remove every function, and that's debatable whether these. So Don, I guess that leads us to the next topic of, will the research clinic ever be completely removed out of the picture? What do you think?
I don't think you can completely remove them out of the picture. You have to, I think, have some involvement. What do you do in case of an emergency? What if there's an adverse event with that? Well, I guess they still could call them up and have them, or just tell them to go to the nearest hospital.
Right.
So that's a possibility. I mean, but there's still some things that need to be done. You could probably have them go to a doctor that just does nothing but physicals, and they can do the physicals and report that back. If that looks good, and then you set them in front of a computer. But how do you get the computer to these people? Maybe just set up sites, and the sites might have a PI there that could do the physicals, and rest everything is done. You've got it on the computer, and it's done via Skype. So if they do it via Skype, then whoever that party on the other end, that central party, can upload that information right in the computer as they're talking. So there's your data.
Right.
Data. Yeah.
So the future of research clinic is debatable, but what's not debatable is that the trend seems to be pharma is taking a much more control over the clinic. So in the old days, they would just kind of sit back, give the sites the protocol, and let them execute it. Now, and because of technology too, they've got microphones in the pens where they can hear the rater asking the subject questions. They've got cameras that actually monitor how the rater is rating the subject, and this raises some concern with many investigators about patient privacy. Right? I mean, we didn't even get into that yet. And so there's no doubt that pharma is trying to get much more control over these trials. Whether that's a good or bad thing remains to be seen, but it very well could backfire on them too.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. It's something to think about. But back to the original points when we first started, too. One point that with all these changes, as a site, look for ways that you can bill if it's costing you extra time instead of looking at it and says, hey, this is a pain in the neck. Look at ways that you can earn income off of that, extra income. Just always take that step because it's going to happen. You have no choice. You know, farmers doing this, either you roll with it or you don't roll with it. You know, and then there's changes to come. We'll see. We'll see what changes come about.
So the take-home message is really understand what the protocol is going to be asking, and then make sure you negotiate these things in the budget, because these are things that we haven't dealt with yet. And I know many sites, this is new to them, and it's going to catch them off guard, because it caught us off guard. And we're not a brand new site. We've been doing this for 10 years, even longer. So I know there's other sites out there that are going to be totally caught off guard, and it's costing money, and you've got to find ways to bill for these things. These are hidden costs that can make or break you as a research clinic and as a business.
Absolutely.
So Don, thank you, man. I like doing these videos here. Hopefully you guys on iTunes will enjoy it. And oh, thanks to our sponsors for the we have this profile page, Don. You know about that. People can sign up, register their profiles. Whether you're a research clinic or a research professional, it costs $99 for the year. What it gives you is free advertising, free promotion. When people visit our site, they can see you. We give you shout outs at the end of every video. But more important than that, people can click on your profile and click your links that will take you to your website so people can learn more about what you offer. So we want to thank our producers, Sarah Siegler and Resolve.
Hello, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah, you like the Ohio State shirt on Don? And Resolve Research Solutions from Ontario, Canada. Thank you. So the first 100 people that sign up their profiles also get to be producers, and we're going to mention them in every single video we do. Every video that's lengthy, like an interview or something in depth like this. So thank you to our producers. We want to see all you guys sign up. There's 98 spots left for you to be a producer of the show, and we hope you guys sign up. Thank you, Don, and we'll do much more of these.
You're welcome, Dan.
All you guys stay tuned. It's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Take care.
Bye-bye.